The restaurant patio buzzed with the quiet elegance of wealth, pristine tablecloths, polished silverware, and soft laughter under the midday sun. At the corner table, Victor Reynolds, a billionaire known for his ruthless business acumen, lifted a spoonful of soup to his lips, distracted by his phone. Across from him, his much younger wife, Isabella, smiled sweetly, urging him to taste it. "Don't eat that!" The sharp, desperate shout cut through the air. Heads turned. A scrawny black boy stood by the iron fence, eyes wide with panic. Was this just another street kid causing trouble, or had Victor's life just been saved? Before we dive into the full story, let us know where you're watching from. If you believe in standing up for justice, hit like and subscribe for more stories that matter. Malik Johnson had learned the hard way that life didn't hand out favors to kids like him. The streets of Charleston were cruel, especially for a black boy without a home. He wasn't born into this life. Circumstances had shoved him into it. His mother, a cleaner at a downtown office, lost her job when the company downsized. Rent went unpaid, the eviction notice came, and one night the locks were changed while they were out looking for cheaper groceries. His mom took up 2 part-time jobs, sleeping in shelters when they could, but some nights there was no space. Malik quickly became a familiar face around the wealthier part of town, where leftovers in restaurant dumpsters were less spoiled and park benches had fewer splinters. He had staked out a small patch behind St. Mary's Church, where the charity kitchen sometimes gave out day-old sandwiches. It wasn't much, but it was safe enough if he kept his head down and stayed out of sight, and he had gotten good at staying invisible. Until that day at the restaurant changed everything. Malik first noticed Isabella Reynolds a few weeks before. The shout. He'd seen her plenty of times, always impeccably dressed, dripping with quiet luxury that screamed money without being gaudy. The kind of woman who didn't just wear wealth, but breathed it. She often lunched alone when Victor wasn't around, sipping sparkling water and nibbling at salads while scrolling through her phone. Malik didn't pay much attention at first. Rich people were a dime a dozen around here. But what caught his eye was her company. It was a man, not her husband, always dressed in a sharp grey suit, older, slick and calculating. They never spoke long, but the exchanges were intense. Documents passed between them once. Another time, a small velvet pouch. Malik didn't care much for adult business, but when you lived on the streets, noticing things kept you alive. And something about those meetings felt off. Then came the vial. Malik had been digging through the trash behind the cafe when he saw it. Isabella and the grey-suited man stood near the side entrance, away from prying eyes. The man handed her a tiny glass bottle, no bigger than Malik's thumb, filled with a clear liquid. He spoke low, but Malik had sharp ears. "1 drop's enough," the man warned. "Tasteless, untraceable unless you know exactly what to look for. Once it hits the bloodstream, it mimics natural causes. Heart failure, maybe a stroke. No one questions it when it's an older man under stress." Isabella took the vial without hesitation, slipping it into her designer handbag like it was lipstick. Her face betrayed nothing. No shock, no hesitation, just cold efficiency. Malik froze, heart pounding. He had seen enough crime in the streets. Petty. Thefts, drug deals, even a mugging once. But this was different. This was rich people crime, the kind that didn't leave bruises but ended lives quietly, cleanly. He should have walked away. Should have pretended he hadn't seen anything. But curiosity, or maybe survival instinct, kept him rooted to the spot. Over the next few days, he watched Isabella more closely. She smiled more around Victor, played the doting wife, but Malik now saw the cracks, the way her eyes flicked to his phone when he wasn't looking, how she gently guided him towards stress, mentioning boardroom betrayals and falling stock prices, how she encouraged him to drink more, eat more, take just 1 more bite when he pushed his plate away. It wasn't love, it was patience, like a hunter waiting for the right moment to strike. Malik didn't know Victor. He didn't care about billionaires or their problems, but he knew injustice when he saw it, and he knew what it felt like to be powerless while someone else played God with your life. He'd been on the receiving end of it too many times. That's why on the day everything came to a head, he lingered near the restaurant longer than usual, watching Isabella's every move. He saw her hand slip into her bag while Victor scrolled through his phone, oblivious. Saw her fingers twist the cap off the tiny vial. Saw the liquid disappear into the steam of the soup like it had never existed. She even stirred it with his spoon, smiling all the while, her red lipstick perfect and unbothered. Malik's breath caught. His mind raced. If he ran in screaming, they'd throw him out before he got a word out. No one listened to street kids, especially not black ones. He'd learned that lesson too many times. But if he didn't act, Victor would die and Malik would carry that weight forever. That's when he shouted. It wasn't planned. It wasn't smart. It was pure instinct, born from years of watching bad things happen to people like him while the world looked the other way. He didn't care if they laughed, if they called the cops, if they beat him down. He just couldn't stand by. Don't eat that. The moment the words left his mouth, Malik knew there was no turning back. The moment Malik's voice cut through the air, the restaurant froze. Silverware clinked against porcelain as hands paused mid-bite. Conversations stopped, eyes flickering toward the ragged boy standing just outside the patio fence. His chest heaved, cheeks flushed from the sprint across the street. He looked wild, desperate. Victor Reynolds, spoon still hovering inches from his lips, blinked in disbelief. He turned slowly toward the boy, brows furrowing beneath the rim of his designer glasses. "What did you just say?" His tone was calm, measured, but there was an edge to it, the tone of a man used to control, to authority. Malik swallowed hard. He knew he had seconds to make this man believe him, to make the world pause long enough for the truth to slip through the cracks of privilege and prejudice. "She put something in your soup," he rasped, voice cracking with urgency. "I saw her. She poured something in when you weren't looking." Gasps rippled across the patio. Someone nearby muttered, "Another street kid causing trouble." A woman in pearls clutched her purse tighter. A middle-aged white man at the next table sneered, "They'll do anything for attention." Isabella's reaction was instant and theatrical. She shot to her feet, knocking her chair back with a screech. "What the hell is he talking about?" Her eyes blazed, but not with fear. No, it was fury, cold and calculated. "This filthy little liar," she hissed, her hand flying to her chest like she'd been personally attacked. "Who even let him near here?" The restaurant manager, a stout white man in his 50s with a face permanently twisted into a scowl, was already storming toward Malik. "We don't tolerate beggars harassing our guests," he snapped, reaching for the boy's arm. Malik jerked, away heart-hammering. He pointed straight at the soup, eyes locked with Victor's. "Don't eat it, sir. Please just smell it. If I'm lying, you'll know." Victor hesitated, eyes flickering between Malik and Isabella. He didn't move the spoon closer, but he didn't lower it either. The confidence he usually carried like a second skin wavered, just slightly. Isabella seized the moment, tears welling in her eyes as her voice softened, trembling like she was moments from breaking down. "Victor, this is absurd. Look at him." She gestured at Malik like he was vermin scurrying through their perfect lunch. "He's probably high or desperate for money. This is what they do. Make up stories, cause a scene, and hope someone throws them a 20 to make them go away." Her words hit hard, not just the content but the tone. This is what they do. Them, kids like Malik, black kids, poor kids, the ones who didn't belong here, not in a pristine, whitewashed world, where problems were hidden behind manicured hedges and gated communities. Victor's jaw tightened. He was a businessman, a man who dealt in facts and outcomes. His life didn't leave room for sentimentality. His gaze swept over Malik, threadbare hoodie, scuffed sneakers, skin darker than anyone else in the immediate vicinity. A street kid, just like Isabella said, but there was something in Malik's eyes, something raw and unfiltered, not the slick, rehearsed desperation of a con artist, fear, conviction. "Sir, please," Malik whispered, voice breaking. "I'm not asking for money. I'm asking you not to die." Victor set the spoon down slowly, deliberately. Isabella's face hardened. "You're seriously entertaining this?" she snapped, her perfect facade cracking at the edges. "Victor, this is ridiculous. He's ruining our lunch." Victor raised a hand, silencing her. He leaned back in his chair, eyes never leaving Malik. "You're saying you saw her put something in my soup?" "What exactly?" Malik nodded furiously. Clear liquid from a tiny bottle. She twisted the cap off under the table when you were on your phone. 1 drop, maybe 2, then she stirred it in. Isabella's mask slipped entirely. She didn't look wounded anymore, she looked dangerous. You little... But Victor wasn't listening to her. His sharp mind was already turning over the facts. Isabella had reached into her bag earlier. She had been unusually insistent about him eating the soup, even when he'd said he wasn't hungry. He inhaled slowly, gaze shifting between the untouched bowl and the boy standing defiantly across the fence. "Fine," Victor said at last, his voice cool and controlled. "Get the manager to send this to the kitchen for testing." "The crowd," murmured. Isabella froze. "You can't be serious." Victor didn't look at her. His eyes were fixed on the soup, as if the golden broth itself held answers. If there's nothing in it, the kid leaves. If there is... His gaze finally lifted, pinning his wife in place. "Then we'll have a different conversation." The manager, clearly annoyed, waved at a waiter to grab the bowl. Malik exhaled shakily, relief flooding through him. Someone was listening, someone with power. But Isabella... Isabella's face was cold, calculating. She didn't look like someone who'd lost. She looked like someone adjusting the game board. As the waiter carried the bowl away, she leaned down, voice low and venomous. "You've made a huge mistake, boy." Malik's stomach twisted. He'd done the right thing, but in a world like this, when had the right thing ever been enough to protect a kid like him? What do you think? Was Victor right to question his wife based on Malik's word alone? Comment number 1 if you think Malik did the right thing by speaking up. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more stories like this. And here's the real question. What happens if the test comes back clean? Would you still believe the boy? Stay tuned. The tension at the restaurant was suffocating. Patrons whispered behind raised hands, some glancing at their phones as if debating whether to record the scene. Malik stood rigid, fists clenched at his sides, while Victor leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, his face an unreadable mask. Isabella, however, was anything but calm. She paced beside the table, her heels clicking sharply against the stone patio. The restaurant manager, clearly irritated by the disruption, snapped his fingers at a waiter. "Take that bowl to the kitchen, now." The young waiter hesitated, eyes darting between Victor and Isabella. It was obvious he didn't want to get involved, but Victor's sharp nod sent him into motion. He picked up the bowl with exaggerated care, as though it might explode in his hands, and disappeared through the swinging kitchen doors. Isabella turned on Victor, her voice pitched high with forced indignation. "I can't believe you're entertaining this nonsense. Look at him." She jabbed a manicured finger toward Malik. "He's probably high or trying to pull some scam. These kids know how to make a scene and guilt people into giving them cash." Malik's jaw tightened. He'd heard it all before, these kids, those people. The words didn't just dismiss his warning, they erased his humanity. But he stood his ground, locking eyes with Victor. "I'm not asking for money," Malik said quietly, voice steady despite the storm inside him. "I'm asking you to stay alive." Victor didn't flinch. His gaze, cool and calculating, studied Malik like a business prospect, weighing risks, measuring costs. Finally, he spoke, his tone even. "If the test comes back clear, you leave. No arguments, no more." Shouting, "Understood?" Malik swallowed hard and nodded. He didn't let himself look at Isabella. He already knew what he'd find there. Hatred, pure and sharp. Minutes crawled by. The chatter of the restaurant slowly resumed, though it was clear everyone was still, watching, waiting for the verdict. Malik shifted from foot to foot, acutely aware of the stares drilling into his back. He didn't belong here, he never had. But right now, belonging didn't matter. Truth did. The waiter returned first, empty-handed and pale. He leaned toward the manager, whispering urgently. The manager's scowl deepened. He waved the kid away and marched toward Victor's table, his face twisted into an expression halfway between smugness and irritation. "Well," the manager huffed, folding his arms. "As expected, nothing." The chef checked. No strange smell, no unusual color. "Soup's fine." Victor exhaled slowly, like a man disappointed but unsurprised. He turned to Malik, brows raising expectantly. "Well?" Malik's heart plummeted. He blinked, momentarily unable to process what he'd just heard. Nothing. That didn't make sense. He saw her pour it in. He wasn't wrong. He couldn't be. Isabella, victorious, let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "There you have it. This little street rat just wanted attention. God, Victor, you've humiliated me in front of everyone because you listened to that." She gestured at Malik like he was trash on the sidewalk. "I'm not lying," Malik protested, stepping closer to the table, desperation creeping into his voice. "It was a clear liquid. Maybe it dissolves fast or doesn't smell. You can't just—" The manager cut him off, face reddening. "That's enough. I'm calling the cops. I don't care how pitiful you look. You don't get to harass paying customers." Victor waved dismissively. "No need. The kid's leaving." His gaze shifted back to Malik, cool and final. "You made your case. You were wrong. Move on." For a moment, Malik couldn't move. He stood there, chest heaving, mind racing. He'd gambled everything, his pride, his safety, his last shred of dignity, on being right. And now? Now he was just another black kid in a white neighborhood, painted as a liar, a troublemaker, an outsider. "Get out of here," the manager growled, grabbing Malik's thin arm with surprising strength, "or I'll make sure you spend the night in a cell." Malik yanked his arm free, glaring at Isabella. She didn't flinch. If anything, she smiled, a slow, cruel curve of crimson lips. "Smart boy," she murmured. "Now run along." The words burned worse than the manager's grip. Malik stumbled backward, tears stinging his eyes, not from fear, but from sheer, helpless rage. He had done everything right, spoken up, stood his ground, and it hadn't mattered. It never mattered. When the world had already decided you were worth less. As he turned to leave, shoulders hunched against the weight of defeat, a hand brushed his. He looked up, startled, to find one of the waiters, Jamal, a young black man who'd kept his head, down through the entire ordeal. Jamal didn't speak, just pressed a crumpled napkin into Malik's palm and walked away quickly, disappearing into the kitchen before anyone noticed. Malik unfolded the napkin with trembling fingers. Scrawled in hurried, messy handwriting was an address and 4 words: "If they won't listen, go." Malik stared at the note, heart pounding anew. He might have lost the battle here, but the war wasn't over, not yet. Without a backward glance at the table, he stuffed the napkin into his hoodie pocket and slipped away, unnoticed by all except one. Isabella watched him go, eyes narrowed, her victorious smile fading into something colder, calculating, dangerous. Malik trudged down the cracked sidewalk, shoulders hunched against more than just the chill in the air. The scornful whispers from the restaurant still echoed in his ears. Filthy liar, attention seeker, just another street kid. His hands clenched. In his hoodie pockets, fingers brushing against the napkin Jamal had given him. He pulled it out, squinting at the hurried scrawl. An address. Nothing fancy, just 1230 Palmer Street. It didn't ring a bell, but the last 3 words did. If they won't listen, go. Malik's gut twisted. He could walk away. Forget the whole thing. Let the world keep spinning while people like Isabella got away with whatever they pleased. After all, he'd done his part, right? Warned the man. Got humiliated for it, end of story. But he couldn't let it go because deep down he knew the truth. He'd seen her pour that liquid into the soup with his own eyes. If he walked away now, Victor Reynolds might not survive the week, and no one else seemed to care. Malik gritted his teeth and started walking. Palmer Street wasn't close, but what else did he have to do? It wasn't like home was waiting for him somewhere warm and safe. After nearly an hour of weaving through streets where the faces got less friendly the darker his skin looked, Malik found himself standing in front of an old, weathered brick building with peeling white paint. A faded sign barely visible above the door read, "Carter's Independent Lab Services." He hesitated. It could be a trap, a joke, a dead end. But Jamal didn't seem like the type to mess with someone already down. Heart pounding, Malik stepped inside. The bell above the door jingled, and a tall black woman with short graying curls looked up. From behind a cluttered desk, she wore a lab coat over a mustard yellow blouse, her expression skeptical but curious. "You lost, kid?" she asked, adjusting her glasses. Malik held up the napkin like a peace offering. Jamal from the restaurant told me to come here. He said if no one believed me, you might. Her eyes narrowed as she took the napkin, lips pressing into a thin line. Without another word, she waved him inside. Close the door and talk fast. Malik spilled everything. The soup, the vial, the test that came back clean, the humiliation. He spoke fast, words tumbling over each other, afraid she'd cut him off like everyone else had. Dr. Evelyn Carter listened, arms crossed, face unreadable. When he finally ran out of breath, she nodded once. Wait here. She vanished into the back, returning a few minutes later with a small black case. You said they tested it in the restaurant kitchen? Malik nodded, and she snorted. Amateurs. Most poisons designed for discretion don't show up in quick tests, especially not if they're tailored for someone's specific health vulnerabilities. Malik blinked. You mean it was made just for him? Possibly. She waved him toward a side room filled with lab equipment. Show me exactly how she did it, every movement. Malik mimicked Isabella's actions, twisting the imaginary cap, tilting his hand just slightly, stirring with calm precision. Dr. Carter's frown deepened. She ran a few tests on a similar broth she had in the back, adding a controlled drop of a colorless liquid from one of her shelves. After an agonizing 15 minutes, her machine beeped. She leaned over the screen, eyes narrowing. Then, without warning, she cursed under her breath. Damn it, kid, you weren't wrong. The compound breaks down under heat but leaves trace metabolites. Not enough for standard kitchen tests. But if he'd eaten the whole bowl? She shook her head. It would have looked like a heart attack within hours. No red flags in an autopsy unless someone knew exactly what to look for. Malik's stomach dropped. He knew it. Relief flooded him, but it was quickly replaced by dread. He had the proof now, but proof didn't mean much when no one was willing to hear it. Dr. Carter printed the results, handing him the papers. Take these to the cops. They can't ignore lab-certified evidence. Malik hesitated. The cops? He laughed bitterly. Lady, I'm a black kid in dirty clothes walking into a precinct accusing a rich white woman of attempted murder. What do you think's gonna happen? Her face hardened. You're right. She scribbled her number at the bottom of the report. Then get these to Victor Reynolds. If he's as powerful as you say, he'll know what to do. If you can get him to listen. Malik nodded, tucking the papers into his hoodie. Thanks, Doc, I owe you. Stay safe, kid, she warned, already turning back to her work. The kind of people who use poison don't like loose ends. Malik hit the streets running, hope rekindled in his chest. He had the truth in his pocket now. All he had to do was get it to the one man who could do something about it. But hope, like trust, was a dangerous thing for someone like Malik. He didn't even make it 2 blocks before flashing lights lit up the street. Hey, you! A cop, white, stocky and bored-looking, stepped out of his patrol car, hand already resting on his holster. Hands out of your pockets, now. Malik froze. He hadn't done anything wrong, but that never seemed to matter. Slowly, he raised his hands, the papers crinkling between his fingers. What's that? The cop barked, striding over. Before Malik could explain, the man snatched the documents, flipping through them with a scowl. Lab results, what are you doing with this, huh? Stealing medical records now? He crumpled the papers without even reading them, tossing them into a nearby trash can like they meant nothing. No, wait! Malik lunged, but the cop shoved him back with a sneer. Those are important. Someone's gonna die if... Save it, the cop interrupted, already reaching for his radio. Vagrancy and suspicion of theft. Dispatch, I got a kid, needs picking up. Malik's heart sank. His proof, gone. His warning, ignored. And now he was about to be dragged into the system that never saw him as anything but a problem. Was this the end of his fight? Or would someone, anyone, finally believe him before it was too late? What do you think? Was Malik right to trust the system with the evidence, or should he have tried a different approach? Comment number 1 if you think Malik did the right thing. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more stories like this. And here's the real question. With his proof destroyed and the police against him, how can Malik possibly warn Victor now? Stay tuned. The flashing lights reflected off the damp pavement as Malik stood frozen, heart pounding in his chest. The crumpled lab report, his only proof, lay discarded in the trash can behind the cop. His breath came fast and shallow, panic tightening its grip as the officer reached for his radio. "Dispatch got a vagrant here, possible theft of medical documents. Requesting backup." "I didn't steal anything," Malik protested, voice breaking with frustration. "That paper, it's evidence. Someone's life depends on it," the cop sneered, hand tightening on his belt. "Yeah, and I'm the mayor. Hands behind your head now." Malik didn't wait. Survival instinct kicked in, the same instinct that had kept him alive on the streets for so long. He spun on his heel and bolted down the alley, sneakers slapping against the wet pavement. The officer cursed and gave chase, but Malik had one advantage. He knew these streets like the back of his hand. Ducking under a broken fence, he slipped through a narrow gap between two buildings, heart hammering in his ears. He didn't stop until the flashing lights faded into the distance. Only then did he slump against a graffiti-covered wall, gasping for air. His proof was gone. Again. No one would believe him without it. And worse, now the cops were after him, not for what he'd done, but for daring to challenge the status quo. For being a black kid in the wrong part of town with the wrong kind of truth. Despair gnawed at the edges of his resolve. He had tried everything, warned the man, got the evidence, went to the system. And every single time the world had slammed the door in his face, but giving up meant letting Isabella win, letting Victor die. Malik clenched his fists. No, not yet. He still had one option left. Jamal. Malik pushed himself off the wall and headed toward the restaurant, keeping to side streets and alleys to avoid patrol cars. The sun was setting by the time he reached the back entrance of the Parkside Bistro. He tapped quietly on the staff door, glancing nervously over his shoulder. After a tense moment, the door creaked open, and Jamal's wary face appeared. His eyes widened when he saw Malik's state, disheveled, out of breath, eyes wild with frustration. "Kid, what the hell happened?" "They took the papers," Malik panted. "The proof. Cops trashed it." "I got nothing left, Jamal. Nothing except what I saw." Jamal cursed under his breath, pulling Malik inside and bolting the door behind them. The kitchen was quiet now, the dinner rush over. Steam drifted lazily from the last few pots on the stove. "Man," Jamal muttered, running a hand down his face. "I knew this town was dirty, but damn, they really don't want you getting that truth out." Malik nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I need to get to Victor, tonight, before she tries again." Jamal hesitated, glancing toward the front of the restaurant where the last few patrons lingered. He seemed to be weighing something heavy. Then, with a resigned sigh, he reached into his apron pocket and pulled out his phone. "Doc Carter sent me the results too. Just in case." He tapped the screen, showing the PDF attachment from the lab. "But if the cops are already after you, it ain't gonna be easy getting close to Reynolds. That man's got security tighter than Fort Knox." Malik's heart leapt. The proof wasn't gone after all. There was still a chance. "I'll figure it out. Just forward it to me, please." Jamal didn't hesitate. Within seconds, Malik's cracked phone buzzed, the attachment lighting up his screen. Hope flickered back to life. But hope, Malik knew, was never free. "Watch your back, kid," Jamal warned as Malik slipped out the back door, phone clutched tightly in his hand. "People like Isabella don't play fair." Malik nodded and disappeared into the night. Victor Reynolds sat in his home office, the lights of the city glittering through the floor-to-ceiling windows. His head throbbed, a dull, persistent ache that no amount of water or aspirin seemed to fix. Stress, the doctors had said. Nothing more. But the headache wasn't the only thing bothering him. It was the boy's voice, sharp and desperate, echoing in his mind. "She put something in your soup." He glanced toward the master bedroom, where Isabella's silhouette moved gracefully behind the frosted glass of the bathroom door. She'd been nothing but attentive since they returned home, maybe overly attentive, pouring his drinks, bringing him snacks he hadn't asked for. Facing like a doting wife, for the first time in their marriage, Victor found himself questioning her intentions. His phone buzzed on the desk. Frowning, he picked it up. Unknown number. Normally he'd ignore it, but tonight, something gnawed at him. He swiped to answer. "Mr. Reynolds?" Malik's voice, urgent and breathless. "Please don't hang up, it's the kid from the restaurant." "Malik, you're in danger." Victor's spine stiffened. "How did you get this number?" "Jamal," Malik replied quickly. "Listen, I've got the lab report, the real one, that poison. It's designed to break down fast, but it leaves traces. Isabella tried to kill you. She's probably trying again right now." Victor's hand tightened. Around the phone, he glanced toward the wine glass Isabella had poured for him not 10 minutes ago, still untouched on the desk. "Check your email," Malik pressed. "I sent the report, please, just look." Victor didn't speak. He simply hung up and opened his email, fingers moving with practiced efficiency. The report was there, and the moment he read the first few lines, the headache vanished, replaced by cold, hard clarity. Poison, custom-made, undetectable in routine tests, just as the boy had claimed. "Victor," Isabella's voice drifted from the bedroom, soft, sweet, calculated. "Everything okay?" Victor stared at the wine glass. Then, without a word, he picked it up, crossed the room, and poured the dark liquid. "Down the sink." "Yeah," he called back, voice tight. "Everything's fine." But it wasn't, not even close. Malik didn't stop running until he reached the edge of the park, lungs burning with exertion. He slumped onto a bench, pulling his hoodie tighter against the night air. He'd done it, warned the man, sent the proof. Now it was out of his hands, but the victory felt hollow. The system hadn't saved Victor. The police hadn't cared. It had come down to a homeless kid, a tired waiter, and a scientist who operated outside the system. If even one piece of that fragile chain had broken, Victor would already be dead. Malik leaned back, staring at the sky. For once, the stars were visible, faint pinpricks of light against the city's glare. He let out a shaky breath, muscles finally relaxing. And that's when the SUV rolled up, sleek, black, tinted windows. It glided to a stop at the curb like a predator stalking its prey. Malik's instinct screamed at him to run, but exhaustion held him in place. The back window hummed down, revealing a familiar face. Isabella. Her smile was cold, her eyes sharper, than the diamonds glittering at her ears. "You really don't know when to quit, do you?" Malik's blood ran cold. "Get in," she ordered, voice like silk stretched too thin. "We need to have a little chat." Malik froze, eyes locked on Isabella's cold smile as the black SUV idled at the curb. The hum of the engine filled the night air, drowning out the faint sound of traffic from the main road. Her manicured fingers tapped against the window frame. Nails painted the same deep crimson as her lipstick. "You've caused enough trouble for one day," she said smoothly, her voice calm, controlled. "Get in now." Malik's heart pounded. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but where? The park was open, the streets quiet, and the only people awake at this hour were the ones who didn't want to be seen. He glanced down at his phone, the last lifeline he had. Jamal's message with the lab report was still there, the proof that had finally made Victor believe him. But proof didn't mean much if you were dead. "I'm not going anywhere with you," Malik shot back, stepping away from the curb. His legs felt like lead, every muscle tight with fear. "Victor knows, he saw the report, it's over." Isabella's smile didn't waver, but her eyes darkened. "Over," she echoed, voice dropping into something colder. "You really think a man like Victor Reynolds can't be convinced otherwise? You don't know how this world works, boy." The word boy hit like a slap, not just because of the way she said it, but because it carried the weight of something older, uglier. Malik had heard it his whole life, from teachers who thought he was destined for failure, from cops who frisked him without cause, from store clerks who watched him like a hawk the moment he stepped inside. He took another step back. "I'm not playing your game." Isabella sighed, exasperated, and snapped her fingers. The back door of the SUV swung open, and a man stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, white. Not some street thug. Professional. He didn't say a word, just advanced toward Malik with the slow, deliberate pace of someone who didn't expect resistance. Malik ran. He didn't wait for the man to grab him, didn't care where he was going. He just sprinted, legs burning, breath ragged as he darted through the park. Behind him, the man shouted something, and the SUV's tires screeched as it rolled forward, following him along the curb. He zigzagged between trees, heart pounding in his ears. His mind raced. He couldn't lead them back to the shelter. Couldn't risk Jamal's place either. But he had to get somewhere public, somewhere with cameras and people who might ask questions. The library. It was 6 blocks away, open late for night students. If he could just... Pain exploded in his side. Malik stumbled, gasping, as the man's shoulder slammed into him from behind. He hit the ground hard, gravel scraping his palms as he tried to crawl away. "Stupid kid," the man muttered, grabbing the back of Malik's hoodie and hauling him to his feet like he weighed nothing. Malik struggled, kicking wildly, but the man's grip was iron. He dragged Malik toward the waiting SUV, where Isabella leaned casually against the hood, arms crossed. "I warned you," she said, shaking her head like a disappointed teacher. "You should have just stayed quiet." Malik thrashed harder. "Victor knows," he shouted, voice hoarse. "You can't fix that," Isabella's eyes narrowed. "Can't I?" Before Malik could respond, the SUV's radio crackled. The driver leaned out. "Boss, change of plans. Reynolds collapsed at the gala. He's in the hospital." Malik froze. Victor. His warning had been too late. Isabella's expression flickered, satisfaction, quickly masked by false concern. "See?" she purred, stepping closer until her face was inches from Malik's. He could smell her perfume, sickly sweet. "You didn't save him. You just made it messier." Malik's stomach twisted. He'd tried everything. The shout at the restaurant, the lab results, the phone call. And still Isabella had stayed one step ahead, like the world itself bent to her will. But there was one thing she hadn't counted on. "You're wrong," Malik rasped, staring her down despite the fear clawing at his throat. "I didn't send the report just to him." Her smile faltered. Malik pressed on, voice strengthening. "I sent it to the hospital too, to the doctors, to the board members, to everyone with an email address at Reynolds Industries." He didn't actually know if it had reached all of them. He'd sent the email in such a rush, barely checking the recipients. But the flicker of doubt in Isabella's eyes told him she believed it. For the first time since this nightmare began, she was the one on the defensive. "Get him in the car," she snapped, fast slipping into pure fury. "Now." The man yanked Malik forward, but he didn't stop talking. "The doctors are running tests, real ones. They're gonna find the poison. And when they do, they'll come for you." Isabella hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. From the corner of his eye, Malik saw another figure sprinting toward them. "Jamal, let him go!" Jamal shouted, skidding to a halt, chest heaving. He held up his phone, the screen glowing with an active call. "Cops are already on the line. They heard everything." The man holding Malik froze, grip loosening slightly. Malik didn't think. He slammed his elbow backward, catching the man in the ribs, then twisted free and bolted toward Jamal. "Run!" Jamal yelled, grabbing Malik's wrist and yanking him toward a side street. Behind them, Isabella cursed, her perfect facade crumbling into something sharp and jagged. "Get them!" But it was too late. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Someone had called the cops for real this time. Jamal didn't stop until they reached a crowded corner store, slipping inside and ducking behind the shelves. Both of them gasped for air, sweat pouring down their faces. "Victor," Malik rasped, gripping the shelf to steady himself. "He collapsed. If the poison—" Jamal's phone buzzed. A text. He glanced down, eyes widening. "Hospital's locked down," he muttered, showing Malik the screen. "Victor's alive. They found something in his blood work. Toxic compounds. Doctors flagged it as suspicious and reported it. Cops are already questioning the staff." Malik sagged in relief, knees nearly buckling. He wasn't too late, not completely, but Isabella was still out there, and people like her didn't go down without a fight. What do you think? Was Malik smart to bluff about, sending the report wider, or was it just pure luck that saved him? Comment number 1 if you think Malik's quick thinking made the difference. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more stories like this. But here's the real question. Now that Victor knows the truth, will he have the power to bring Isabella down, or will she strike first? Stay tuned. The relief that flooded Malik's chest when he heard Victor was alive didn't last long. Reality hit like a freight train. Isabella was still out there, and if there was one thing Malik had learned about people like her, it was that they didn't accept defeat quietly. Jamal paced the narrow aisle of the corner store, phone still clutched in his hand. "We need to get you somewhere safe, kid. If she sent someone after you once, she'll do it again." Malik nodded, still catching his breath. His ribs ached from where the man had tackled him earlier, and his legs felt like jelly. He'd been running all day, running from people who saw him as nothing more than a nuisance. A threat. "What about Victor?" Malik rasped. Jamal checked his phone again. "Hospital's got him under guard now. They found traces of the poison in his system, like you said. Doctors flagged it, cops got involved, but..." He hesitated, jaw tightening. "Man, you're not gonna like this. The story's already getting twisted." He held up the screen. Malik leaned in, heart sinking as he read the headline splashed across a local news site. "Billionaire hospitalized after poison. Scare street kid falsely accuses wife." Malik blinked, disbelieving. "What? That's not true. They found the poison." Jamal gave a humorless chuckle. "Yeah, well, facts don't move as fast as money. You really think someone like Isabella doesn't have people in the press? She controls the narrative. You're just a kid with no address." Malik's fists clenched, nails digging into his palms. He had done everything right, gotten the proof, warned Victor, saved his life. And yet, the world still chose to believe. The wealthy white woman over the homeless black boy. "Look," Jamal continued, voice low and urgent. "You need to lay low until this blows over. Victor knows the truth. Let his lawyers handle it. You already risked your neck more times than I can count." But Malik shook his head. "If they're already spinning the story, she's not done. She'll find another way. Victor's not safe. And if they find me first?" He swallowed hard. "They'll make sure I can't talk." Jamal cursed under his breath, running a hand over his face. "Damn it, kid, you're right." He glanced out the window, eyes narrowing as a black sedan crawled past the store. It didn't stop, but the tinted windows made it impossible to see who was inside. "We gotta move," Jamal muttered. "Now." He shoved his phone into his pocket and guided Malik out the back door, into the narrow alley behind the store. The city lights flickered above, casting long, menacing shadows. Malik's breath came fast as they hurried down the alley, every dark corner feeling like a potential ambush. But they didn't get far. 2 blocks away, red and blue lights flashed as a patrol car pulled up, cutting off their path. A second car screeched to a halt behind them. "Freeze!" Malik's heart dropped. 2 white officers stepped out, hands already on their holsters. "Hands where we can see 'em." Jamal raised his hand slowly, jaw tightening. "We didn't do anything, man, just walking." One of the cops sneered. "Sure you were. Got a call about a disturbance. Black male, hoodie, matching your description. Same kid who caused trouble at the hospital." His eyes flicked to Malik, full of disdain. "Looks like we found him." Malik stepped back instinctively, but the second cop was already circling behind him. "No!" Malik protested, voice sharp with panic. "I didn't do anything. I was..." "The one who saved him. Yeah?" The first cop chuckled, pulling out his cuffs. "That what you're going with? 'Cause all I see is a kid with priors for trespassing and loitering, making false accusations against an upstanding woman. You're lucky we don't charge you with harassment." Priors? Of course. Malik had been stopped so many times for existing, in the wrong neighborhood that his name was already in the system. Never charged, never convicted, just enough to paint him as a troublemaker in a world that didn't need much convincing. The cold metal of handcuffs snapped around his wrists. "Wait!" Jamal stepped forward, hands still raised. "The hospital found poison in Victor's blood. The kid was right." The second officer snorted. "And?" Cops on the scene already cleared the wife. No evidence she had anything to do with it. "This kid? Just looking for a payday." Malik's stomach churned. It didn't matter what was true, the system had already picked a side. The first cop shoved him toward the patrol car. "Let's go, hero." Jamal watched, helpless. He couldn't. Get arrested too. Not with rent due and a family depending on his paycheck. He hesitated, then muttered, "I'll find someone who'll listen, kid. Hang tight." But Malik didn't believe it. Not anymore. The ride to the precinct was silent except for the crackle of the radio. Malik stared out the window, anger boiling in his chest. He had done everything right. Saved a man's life, risked his own, and still the world saw him as nothing more than a problem to be removed. At the station, they processed him like clockwork. Mugshot, fingerprints, paperwork. No one cared about his protests. No one cared about the lab results. "You'll hold overnight," the desk sergeant grunted, shoving him toward a holding cell. "Maybe longer, depending on how busy the courts are." The cell door slammed shut. Malik slumped onto the cold bench, staring at the flickering fluorescent light overhead. Isabella had won. Again. Hours passed. The night stretched on, broken only by the occasional shuffle of feet in the hallway. Malik didn't sleep. How could he? He'd been crushed by a system designed to ignore voices like his. But just as dawn painted the sky in pale shades of pink and grey, something changed. Footsteps. Urgent. The sharp click of heels. "Where is he?" a familiar voice demanded. Malik sat up, heart racing. He knew that voice, Dr. Carter. The cell door creaked open and the officer on duty muttered, "You've got some damn good friends, kid." Dr. Carter stormed in, lab coat flapping behind her. She held up her phone, screen flashing with an email thread. "They confirmed the compound," she snapped at the officer. "It's in Reynolds's bloodstream. Hospital filed an official report an hour ago. You're holding the wrong person." The officer hesitated, then cursed under his breath and unlocked the cuffs. Malik staggered to his feet, barely believing what was happening. "Come on," Dr. Carter said, steering him toward the exit. It's not over yet. Outside, the city was waking up. Cars honked, people rushed to work, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface. Malik blinked against the sunlight, disoriented but determined, because one thing was clear now. Isabella might have the system on her side, but Malik had something stronger. The truth, and this time he wasn't fighting alone. Malik stumbled into the daylight, blinking against the harsh sun as Dr. Carter practically dragged him away from the precinct. His wrists still bore faint red marks from the cuffs, and exhaustion weighed down every step. But he was free. For now. "How did you get them to let me go?" Malik rasped, voice hoarse from hours of stress and dehydration. Dr. Carter didn't slow her pace. "Hospital confirmed the poison in Victor's system and filed a formal report. The lab's name on the test? Mine. I sent a copy directly to the State Health Board. They couldn't ignore it once it hit official channels." Her face was tight with frustration. "But don't get comfortable, kid. This isn't over." Malik's stomach twisted. It never was. They rounded a corner, and Jamal's beat-up Honda idled by the curb. He leaned out the window, relief washing over his face when he saw Malik. "Damn, kid. Thought they'd bury you in paperwork for days." "I almost didn't make it out," Malik muttered, sliding into the back seat as Dr. Carter jumped into the front. The car smelled faintly of fast food and old air freshener, but to Malik it might as well have been a five-star hotel. Safe. Enclosed. Jamal pulled into traffic, voice low and serious. "Victor's awake. Not fully stable, but conscious. Cops are circling the hospital like sharks, and guess what? Isabella's already there, playing the grieving wife." Malik's eyes widened. "Grieving? He's not even dead." Jamal gave a humorless chuckle. "Doesn't matter. She's spinning it like he collapsed from stress and age, nothing criminal, blaming the doctors for missing early signs. And the news, they're eating it up." Dr. Carter's knuckles whitened as she gripped the dashboard. "She's covering her tracks. If Victor doesn't speak up soon, they'll sweep this under the rug and she'll walk away clean." Malik's mind raced. He had proof, but proof hadn't been enough before. Isabella had influence, money, and connections that stretched further than any lab report or street kid's word. The system wasn't built to protect people like him, but he had one advantage. He'd seen her mask slip. He knew what she was capable of when cornered. "Take me to the hospital," Malik said, voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his gut. Dr. Carter whipped around. "Are you insane? That's the first place they'll look for you. Cops, Isabella's. People, hell, the press too. You won't make it past the front desk." "I have to," Malik insisted. "If Victor dies without saying the truth himself, she wins. The cops didn't believe me. The media called me a liar. But if he speaks, if he names her, they can't ignore that." Jamal hesitated, gripping the steering wheel tighter. "Man, you're brave, but brave gets you killed in this town." "Brave saved his life," Malik shot back. "Now I need to finish it." The silence in the car was thick. Finally, Jamal sighed and flipped on his blinker. "All right, kid. Your funeral." The hospital was a fortress. Squad cars lined the curb, officers standing guard at every entrance. The revolving glass doors spun lazily as reporters hovered nearby, cameras ready. And in the middle of it all, Isabella Reynolds stood on the steps, draped in an elegant black trench coat, sunglasses perched atop her flawless hair. She clutched a tissue in one hand, the perfect image of a distraught wife. Malik's blood boiled. She was already controlling the narrative, turning herself into the victim while the man she tried to kill lay fighting for his life inside. "She's bold," Dr. Carter muttered, watching from the passenger seat. "Brazen even." Malik's jaw tightened. "She thinks she's untouchable." "Because she usually is," Jamal added grimly. Malik didn't wait. He slipped out of the car, pulling his hoodie up to shadow his face. The cops wouldn't recognize him immediately. He'd been processed by night shift officers, not the day crew. He could slip through if he moved fast. Dr. Carter cursed under her breath, but didn't stop him. "I'll be right behind you," she called softly. "If they grab you again, I'll raise hell." Malik nodded and melted into the crowd. Inside, the hospital buzzed with controlled chaos. Nurses hurried between rooms. Doctors spoke in hushed tones, and the security presence was unmistakable. Malik kept his head down, slipping past the front desk while an elderly patient argued with the receptionist. He ducked into a stairwell and climbed 2 flights, heart hammering with exertion and fear. Victor's room was on the 3rd floor. He'd overheard Jamal mention it on the phone. Room 312. Malik crept down the hall, blending into the background as best he could. A nurse glanced his way but didn't stop him. He looked like just another kid visiting a sick relative, invisible, overlooked until he wasn't. The door to room 312 was ajar, and standing just inside her back to the hallway was Isabella. Malik froze, breath caught in his throat. She was talking to someone, voice smooth and persuasive. "I know it's hard, Victor," she cooed, "but you need to think about what's best for everyone. This stress, this doubt, paranoia. It's not good for your heart. Just sign the papers. Transfer power of attorney to me, and I'll handle everything." "No more worries." Malik's stomach twisted. She was still trying to control him even now, even after failing to kill him outright. Victor's voice, weak but defiant, rasped from the bed. "You're unbelievable." Isabella sighed, the mask slipping just enough for Malik to see the steel beneath the charm. "No, darling, I'm practical, and you used to appreciate that." Malik didn't think. He acted. Bursting into the room, he shouted, "Stop! Don't sign anything!" Isabella spun around, eyes widening in genuine shock. "You?" she hissed, mask cracking into something raw and furious. "How are you even—" Victor's eyes fluttered open, gaze bleary but sharp enough to recognize the boy who had once shouted across a bustling cafe to save his life. "Malik," he rasped, voice hoarse but gaining strength. "You're alive." "I never left," Malik shot back, standing his ground, "and I'm not letting her finish what she started." Isabella's expression twisted into something ugly. "You little—" But Malik cut her off. "The doctors found the poison, Victor. They confirmed it. Dr. Carter ran the tests. It's real. She lied about everything." Victor's hand, frail but steady, pushed the papers off his lap. The legal documents fluttered to the floor like dead leaves. He locked eyes with his wife, and for the first time, Malik saw true clarity there. Anger, betrayal, and cold determination. "Get out," Victor growled, voice stronger than it had been in days. Isabella faltered. "Victor, you're confused. He's manipulating you. I said get out." His voice boomed through the room, cutting off her protest. The security guard stationed down the hall rushed in, hand already on his radio. Isabella stepped back, mask reforming instantly as tears welled in her eyes. "This is ridiculous," she stammered, flipping the script once more. "My husband is ill and this child is harassing us." Victor's hand shot up, silencing her. He turned to the guard, face pale but resolute. "Get this woman out of my room and call my lawyer now." The guard hesitated, clearly unsure who to believe. Isabella had power, influence, but Victor Reynolds was still Victor Reynolds, and right now he looked like a man with nothing left to lose. "Sir, are you sure?" the guard asked, eyes flicking between them. Victor's gaze didn't waver. "Positive." The guard nodded once and reached for his radio. "We need backup in room 312. Possible domestic situation." Isabella's face crumpled into rage. "You can't do this. I made you. Without me, you'd still be chasing bad real estate deals and drowning in debt." Victor chuckled, bitter and broken. Better broke than dead. 2 more guards arrived, and Isabella's fury turned cold as ice. She backed toward the door, eyes locking with Malik's one last time. "This isn't over," she whispered, voice venomous. "You think you won? You don't know the game you're playing, boy." Malik didn't flinch. He'd heard it all before, from cops, from landlords, from teachers who'd written him off before he ever had a chance. But this time? This time the system hadn't swallowed him whole. This time he'd shouted and someone had listened. As the guards escorted Isabella down the hall, her protests echoing off the sterile walls, Victor sagged back against the pillows, chest rising and falling with labored breaths. "Kid," he rasped, turning his tired eyes to Malik. "You saved my life. Twice." Malik stepped closer, fists still clenched at his sides. "Yeah," he muttered, "but she's not done. Not yet." Victor nodded grimly, gaze hardening. "Then we finish it. Together. What do you think? Was Malik right to risk everything? By confronting Isabella directly, or did he just get lucky again? Comment number 1 if you think his courage made the difference, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more stories like this. But here's the real question. Now that Isabella's been exposed, how far will she go to protect herself? Can Malik and Victor truly bring her down for good? Stay tuned. Victor Reynolds sat upright in his hospital bed, the room still buzzing with tension long after Isabella had been dragged out. His breathing was shallow, face pale from exhaustion, but his eyes burned with something sharper than pain: betrayal. Malik stood near the window, arms crossed tightly over his chest. The boy's hoodie was rumpled, his face drawn from a sleepless night and too many close calls. He didn't trust the quiet. It felt like the eye of a storm. Victor broke the silence first. "She won't go quietly." Malik glanced over, jaw tightening. "She already got away with it once. You let her walk out of here, she'll come back stronger." Victor nodded slowly, gaze dropping to the untouched glass of water on his bedside table. "You're right. She's not just dangerous, she's connected. You don't pull off something like this without backup." As if on cue, his phone buzzed. Victor reached for it, ignoring the ache in his muscles. A text from his private investigator flashed on the screen. Confirmed. Isabella's lover is Mason Drake, high-profile investor, heavy ties to corporate lobbyists, suspected but never charged in multiple cases of corporate sabotage. Watch your back. Victor exhaled slowly. "Drake," he muttered, more to himself than to Malik. "Of course it's him." Malik frowned. "Who's Drake?" Victor's lips thinned. "Mason Drake. Real estate mogul, venture capitalist and professional parasite. He cozies up to wealthy partners, helps streamline their affairs, and walks away richer when they crash and burn. I always suspected he had his eyes on my company, but I didn't think he'd stoop to..." He broke off, shaking his head. "No, of course he would." Malik's stomach sank. This wasn't just about Isabella anymore. It never had been. She wasn't acting alone. She was part of something bigger, nastier, something designed to crush anyone who stood in its way. "Drake's got money, lawyers, and politicians in his pocket," Victor continued grimly. "Isabella's just the face. He's the real power." Malik took a step forward, fists clenched. "Then we hit the power." Victor looked at him, surprised by the fire in the boy's eyes. But he didn't argue. Instead, he reached for the hospital phone and dialed quickly. "George," he said when his lawyer picked up. "We're escalating. I want every asset under. My name frozen. If Isabella or Drake try to access anything, flag it immediately. And get the board on standby, emergency meeting within the hour." He hung up and turned to Malik. "If we can't beat them in the shadows, we expose them in the light, publicly, loudly." Malik nodded, determination settling in his chest. "Let's do it." The plan moved fast. Too fast. Victor's legal team worked through the night, drafting emergency injunctions and locking down his business accounts. Malik, with Jamal and Dr. Carter's help compiled every shred of evidence they had. The lab reports, the hospital findings, even the video Jamal had secretly recorded when Isabella confronted Malik outside the SUV. By sunrise, the boardroom at Reynolds Industries was filled with tense executives, some loyal to Victor, others with quiet ties to Drake. Victor, still pale but dressed in a sharp grey suit, sat at the head of the table, his presence commanding despite the hospital wristband peeking from under his cuff. "I called this meeting," Victor began, voice cold and steady, "because someone tried to kill me, and they almost succeeded." Gasps rippled through the room. Phones buzzed quietly as word spread. Victor threw the lab report onto the table. Poison, administered through food. The compound was traced back to a supplier with financial ties to Mason Drake. Silence, then murmurs, uncertain and uneasy. "Drake and Isabella Reynolds conspired to remove me," Victor continued, eyes sweeping the room. "To take control of this company, and if they succeeded, none of you would have been safe. Once they owned Reynolds Industries, they'd gut it, liquidate assets, walk away with billions while you took the fall." One of the board members, an older man with silver hair and a wary gaze, cleared his throat. "Victor, these are serious allegations. Do you have proof beyond this lab report?" Victor didn't speak. He simply turned to Malik, who stepped forward and placed Jamal's phone on the table. "Play it," Victor ordered. Jamal's video flickered to life on the screen. Isabella's voice filled the room, sharp and venomous. "You should have just stayed quiet, boy." The board members froze. The video continued, showing her admission about the poison, the SUV, the threats. By the time it ended, the room was deathly silent. Victor leaned forward, hands clasped tightly. "That's the woman who was almost your CEO. The woman who would have dismantled everything we built." No one argued. They couldn't. The evidence was too damning. Finally, one of the younger board members muttered, "What do we do now?" Victor's jaw set. "We fight back, legally, publicly, and without mercy." But Mason Drake wasn't one to wait for an attack. That afternoon, while Victor's team prepared the press release and Malik sat quietly in the corner of the boardroom, Jamal's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and swore under his breath. "Kid," he muttered, passing the phone to Malik. "You need to see this." Malik leaned in. His stomach dropped. A headline from a major news outlet blared across the screen. "Reynolds Empire faces hostile takeover amid allegations of fraud and mismanagement." Underneath was a photo, not of Victor, of Malik. The article spun the entire narrative around. Malik wasn't a hero anymore. He was suddenly a troubled youth with a history of run-ins with law enforcement, allegedly coerced by Reynolds to fabricate claims against his wife in a desperate bid to retain control of his empire. "They're flipping the script," Malik muttered, voice hollow. "Making me the villain." Victor's lawyer stormed into the room moments later, face grim. "Drake filed an emergency injunction, claiming you falsified evidence to slander Isabella. They're demanding Malik's arrest for fraud." The world tilted under Malik's feet. He stumbled back, barely catching himself on the table's edge. Jamal swore, "This is insane. The kid saved your life." Victor's expression darkened. "This isn't just about me anymore. They're tying up the courts, spinning the media, muddying the waters. Classic Drake." Malik's throat tightened. "What do we do?" Victor didn't hesitate. "We don't play defense, we hit harder." Within hours, Victor's PR team flooded the media with counter-narratives, videos, lab reports, eyewitness statements from the hospital staff who'd seen Isabella trying to pressure Victor into signing the power of attorney. But Drake's influence ran deep. For every article exposing the truth, another popped up painting Malik as a dangerous grifter. By nightfall, Malik's face was plastered across news stations with the words "fraud" and "criminal accomplice." Hiding in Victor's penthouse, Malik paced like a caged animal. "It's like fighting a ghost," he muttered. "No matter what we do, they're always one step ahead." Victor, watching the news with a grim expression, nodded. That's how people like Drake win. They don't need to be right. They just need to confuse everyone long enough to walk away clean. Dr. Carter, sitting nearby with her laptop, suddenly looked up. "Maybe that's the problem," she said slowly. "We're fighting on their terms. In their arena, courts, media, all places Drake controls." Malik frowned. What are you saying? She turned the laptop around, showing a live stream from a popular independent journalist, someone known for exposing corruption without corporate ties. I'm saying we take it straight to the people, Dr. Carter said. Unfiltered, raw, let them hear the truth from you. Victor hesitated. That's risky. If Drake finds out, he'll come down on Malik like a hammer. Malik squared his shoulders. He already is. I'm not hiding anymore. Victor met his gaze for a long moment, then nodded. All right, kid, let's burn it down. An hour later, Malik sat in front of a webcam, heart pounding so hard he thought it might burst from his chest. The camera's red light blinked steadily as the journalist introduced him. Tonight, we're talking to Malik Johnson, the homeless teen accused of fabricating an attempted murder claim. But here's the twist. He says the real criminals are the ones pointing fingers. Malik leaned forward, voice steady despite the fear clawing at his throat. I didn't lie, he began. I saw Isabella Reynolds poison her husband. I tried to stop it, and when I didn't stay quiet, they tried to erase me. He held up the lab report, the hospital findings, Jamal's video. Everything. Streamed live to thousands of viewers. They think they can bury me because I'm nobody. No money, no power, just a kid without a home. But you can't bury the truth, not if enough people are willing to see it. The chat exploded with comments. Some called him a liar, others called him brave. But the tide was turning. The truth was out there now, beyond corporate control, and Malik, he was done running, he was fighting back. For the first time, it felt like he might actually win. The live stream spread like wildfire. Within hours, Malik's face was plastered across social media, trending under hashtags like Believe Malik and Reynolds Conspiracy. Independent journalists picked up the story, dissecting the video frame by frame, while major networks hesitated, unsure which narrative would win out. Victor watched it all unfold from his penthouse, phone buzzing constantly with alerts. He stood by the window, staring out at the city he once thought he controlled. Power, he realized, wasn't just about money. It was about perception, and perception was slipping out of Drake's grip. But Malik, he wasn't celebrating. He was pacing the carpet, phone clutched tightly in his hand, waiting for the inevitable retaliation. Because if there was one thing he knew, it was that men like Mason Drake didn't lose quietly. The call came at 2 a.m. Victor answered first, his face darkening as the voice on the other end spoke. He didn't say much, just listened, jaw tightening with every word. When he finally hung up, he turned to Malik, expression grim. Drake's filing a lawsuit, Victor said quietly. Defamation, claiming you fabricated everything for attention and profit. He's throwing the book at you. Malik's heart sank. I don't have anything for them to take. Victor nodded. That's the point. It's not about money. It's about drowning you in legal fees, tying you up in court until you disappear. Standard playbook for people like him. Jamal, sitting on the couch with his laptop, let out a bitter laugh. Man's trying to bury you under paperwork instead of 6 feet under. Progress, I guess. Dr. Carter leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed. They can't win in court if the public already believes Malik. The lawsuit's not for the law, it's for the headlines. To make people doubt. Malik rubbed his temples, exhaustion weighing down every muscle. He'd come so far. Shouted when no one wanted to listen. Found proof when everyone called him a liar. Saved a man's life. And still the system bent in favor of those with deeper pockets and cleaner shoes. Victor's phone buzzed again. He glanced down, eyes narrowing. Anonymous tip just hit the newswire. Supposedly Malik was seen trying to sell fake labby. Results to reporters for cash. He looked up, face hard. They're planting stories now. Full-on character assassination. Malik's throat tightened. They're never going to stop, are they? Victor didn't sugarcoat it. No, not until they win, or until we make it impossible for them to. By morning, the situation had escalated, beyond control. News vans lined the street outside the Reynolds building. Security tightened around Victor's penthouse, but cameras still caught glimpses of Malik whenever he moved near a window. The headlines were relentless. Teen who saved, billionaire, exposed as grifter. Insider claims Malik Johnson. Orchestrated poison hoax for fame. Victor Reynolds silent amid fraud allegations. Is he complicit? Victor's legal team fought back, issuing cease and desist letters and counterclaims. But as always, the damage was already done. Doubt spread faster than truth. Then came the subpoena. Malik held the crisp envelope in trembling hands, staring at his name printed in bold letters. Court appearance. Drake's lawyers were dragging him into the system, a system that had never worked for kids like him. The thought of standing before a judge with Drake's team twisting every word he said made his stomach churn. "They'll tear me apart," Malik muttered, voice hollow. "They'll use my record, my homelessness, my whole life against me." Victor's expression softened. "They'll try, but you've got something they don't." Malik looked up, hope flickering faintly. "What?" Victor smiled grimly. "The truth. And now? You've got someone powerful enough to make them hear it." The court date came faster than expected. Malik sat in the cold, sterile waiting room outside the courtroom, legs bouncing with nervous energy. Victor sat beside him, calm but watchful, like a general before battle. "Once you're up there," Victor said quietly, "speak plain, don't embellish, don't try to sound smarter than you are. Just tell them what happened." Malik nodded, swallowing hard. He'd faced cops, thugs, and poisoners, but this felt worse, because here words were weapons and the other side had an entire arsenal. The bailiff called his name. Heart pounding, Malik stood and followed the officer into the courtroom. Drake was already there, seated beside a team of sleek, sharp-dressed lawyers. He didn't look angry. He looked bored, confident, like a man who'd already won, and beside Drake, Isabella. She wore a demure grey suit, hair pulled back, makeup soft and understated. The perfect image of a wronged woman standing by her advisor, after escaping an abusive, manipulative husband. Her eyes flicked to Malik, and she smiled ever so slightly. Malik's hands clenched into fists. The judge entered, the room stood, and the trial began. Drake's lawyers moved fast. They painted Malik as an opportunist, an uneducated street kid who'd latched onto a wealthy man's misfortune to elevate himself. They highlighted his juvenile record, trespassing, loitering, even an old shoplifting charge from when he was 10 and starving. Every stumble, every desperate moment of survival, twisted into proof of his dishonesty. "Mr. Johnson," one lawyer sneered, pacing before the witness stand, "you expect us to believe that you, a homeless miner with no formal education, not only uncovered an elaborate murder plot, but also outsmarted one of the city's most respected businesswomen?" Malik's mouth went dry. He glanced at Victor, who gave a small, encouraging nod. "I didn't outsmart anyone," Malik said quietly, voice steady despite the fear crawling up his spine. "I just didn't look away when I saw something wrong." The lawyer scoffed. "Something wrong? You mean the alleged poisoning? Which, I remind the court, was never directly tied to Mrs. Reynolds." Malik's anger flared. "Because she had people cover her tracks? You think someone like me could fake lab results, bribe hospital staff? The only reason anyone listened was because the poison was real, and Victor almost died." The lawyer leaned in, eyes narrowing. "So you're saying you were the sole witness to this supposed crime? A street kid with no credibility, no resources, and no proof beyond a few conveniently timed videos?" Malik hesitated. That was the trap. Discredit the witness, and the case fell apart. Truth didn't matter if no one believed the messenger. But Malik had one card left. "I wasn't the only witness," he said slowly, locking eyes with the lawyer. "There's someone else," the courtroom murmured. Drake sat up straighter, brow furrowing. The judge rapped his gavel. "Order. Mr. Johnson, if you have another witness, the court will hear them." Victor stood. "We do, Your Honor." Yazthili. Side door opened, and Dr. Carter walked in, lab coat crisp, documents in hand. Drake's face twisted into something ugly. He leaned toward his lead attorney, whispering furiously. Dr. Carter took the stand, gaze calm and unwavering. "I'm Dr. Evelyn Carter," she began, voice clear and authoritative, "board-certified toxicologist. I independently verified the presence of a synthetic compound in Mr. Reynolds's bloodstream, one consistent with known undetectable poisons." The prosecutor frowned. "And you're certain the source was the Meal consumed at the Parkside Bistro. Dr. Carter nodded. Yes, I tested the remnants myself. The concentration matched perfectly. The defense lawyer jumped up. Objection. This witness was not disclosed during discovery. Victor's lawyer, a sharp-eyed black woman named Kendra Miles, stood smoothly. Your Honor, the defense has introduced multiple new claims since the trial began. Dr. Carter's testimony directly refutes their narrative and corroborates existing evidence. The judge nodded. Overruled, proceed. Malik watched Drake's face darken with every word Dr. Carter spoke. By the time she stepped down, the tide had turned. For the first time, doubt hung over Drake's camp, not Malik's. Then, Victor took the stand. He spoke slowly, deliberately, described the headaches, the exhaustion, the way Isabella had pushed the soup toward him, smiled while he ate, then feigned shock when he collapsed. She knew, Victor rasped, voice hoarse but strong. She knew because she planned it. And when Malik tried to save me, she tried to destroy him. The final blow came when Victor's private investigator presented financial records, wire transfers from one of Drake's shell companies to the lab that manufactured the poison. The paper trail was thin, but it was there. The room erupted. The judge banged his gavel repeatedly, but the damage was done. The verdict didn't come immediately. It never did in cases like this. But the headlines changed overnight. Billionaire. Poison plot unraveled. Teen hero vindicated. Mason Drake under investigation for conspiracy and fraud. Isabella Reynolds faces multiple felony charges after courtroom bombshell. Drake's empire began to crumble. Clients pulled out. Fair deals. Stock prices plummeted. And Isabella? She disappeared from the media entirely. Her once polished image shattered beyond repair. Malik stood on the courthouse steps, the cool breeze ruffling his hoodie. He wasn't smiling. Victory didn't feel like joy. It felt like survival, like breathing after nearly drowning. Victor joined him, hands in his pockets. How you did it, kid? Malik shook his head. We did it. Victor chuckled. Hell of a team, huh? But Malik's gaze drifted across the street, where an unmarked black SUV idled at the curb. Not police, not reporters, Drake's people, watching, waiting. The fight wasn't over. Not yet. And Malik, he wasn't backing down. Not now. Not ever. The courtroom victory had felt monumental, but the aftermath proved far messier. Exposing Isabella and Mason Drake didn't erase the scars they'd left behind, and it certainly didn't undo the damage done to Malik's reputation. Truth might have won in court, but outside? Perception was still a battlefield. Malik sat on the edge of Victor's penthouse couch, staring blankly at the TV. News anchors dissected the trial like vultures picking over a carcass. Some praised Malik as a brave whistleblower, a kid who'd stood against corruption. Others clung to the narrative Drake's PR team had spun early on. Was Malik really a hero, or just a pawn in a billionaire's power struggle? Hero today, villain tomorrow, Jamal muttered from the kitchen, flipping through his phone. Doesn't matter how much truth you drop, people believe what they want to believe. Victor, standing by the window with a glass of water, didn't disagree. He looked thinner, paler. The poison had done more damage than he liked to admit, and recovery was slow. He'd stepped down from day-to-day operations at his company, leaving the board to stabilize the chaos Drake had left behind. They'll forget the noise eventually, Victor said quietly, not turning from the view. The headlines move on, but you? He glanced back at Malik. You'll still be standing. Malik didn't feel like he was standing. He felt like he was balancing on a tightrope, one gust away from falling. The trial had ended with multiple felony charges against Isabella, attempted murder, conspiracy, and fraud. Mason Drake faced separate charges for corporate malfeasance, but his lawyers were already working overtime, spinning tales of plausible deniability. The man had built his empire on slippery deals and backroom handshakes. Getting him to stick to the wall would take more than courtroom theatrics. I'm not stupid enough to think it's over, Malik muttered, pulling his hoodie tighter around himself. People like Drake, they don't go down easy. Victor nodded. No, they don't. But they're bleeding now. That's when they make mistakes. The problem was, Malik couldn't afford more mistakes. The moment the trial ended, the city's attention turned elsewhere. His face stopped appearing on news feeds, and the offers of help from non-profits and community leaders dried up almost overnight. Without the spotlight, he was just another black kid without a home, still living day to day. Dr. Carter had offered him a room in her guest house, a quiet, clean space with a warm bed and a lock on the door. For the first few nights, Malik couldn't sleep. The silence felt unnatural after years of sirens, footsteps, and whispered threats in the dark. But slowly, exhaustion won out, and for the first time in what felt like forever, he rested. 2 weeks passed, then 3. Isabella's assets were frozen, her social circle evaporating like mist under the sun. The media had moved on to fresher scandals, and Malik found himself walking through the city with less fear but no more certainty about his future. One rainy evening, Victor called. "I need you to come by the office," Victor said, voice serious but calm. "It's important." Malik hesitated. He hadn't stepped foot in Reynolds Tower since the trial. Too many memories, too many eyes. "What's going on?" Victor didn't answer right away. "Just get here. Trust me." Malik almost said no. He'd done his part, saved the man's life, faced down Drake, survived the system. He didn't owe anyone anything. But curiosity, or maybe loyalty, won out. The elevator ride to the top floor was eerily quiet. When the doors slid open, Malik found Victor waiting in the hallway, not in a suit this time, but in jeans and a sweater. The sharp-edged businessman looked almost human. "Walk with me," Victor said, leading the way down the hall. They passed empty offices, signs of a company still rebuilding after the scandal. Malik noticed new faces, younger and more diverse than the old guard. Victor wasn't just recovering, he was reshaping the power structure entirely. Victor stopped outside a conference room. Inside, Malik glimpsed 2 people he didn't recognize: a middle-aged black woman with short-cropped hair and a tall man in a worn military jacket. They were deep in conversation, papers spread across the table. "These are people I trust," Victor explained. "They're building something new. A foundation. Not charity, opportunity, jobs, education, legal aid. The kind of stuff that stops kids like you from falling through the cracks in the first place." Malik blinked, caught off guard. "And you're telling me this because—" Victor smiled faintly. "Because you're the reason it's happening, and because I want you to be part of it." Malik took a step back, heart pounding. "I'm not some poster boy for your redemption project." Victor didn't flinch. "No, you're the kid who saw the truth when everyone else looked away, who stood up when it cost you everything. That's not charity, Malik. That's leadership." Malik hesitated, torn between suspicion and something warmer, softer, hope. He'd spent his life fighting to be seen, to survive, and now someone was offering him a seat at the table. "I don't know anything about foundations or leadership," Malik muttered, kicking at the carpet. Victor chuckled. "Neither did I once. You'll figure it out." Later that night, Malik stood on the rooftop of Dr. Carter's guest house, staring out at the city lights. The streets below bustled with life. People rushing home from work, laughing over late dinners, living lives untouched by the chaos he'd barely escaped. His phone buzzed. A message from Jamal. "Drake's lawyers are bailing, he's losing ground fast." Malik exhaled slowly. Victory, real victory, wasn't a single moment. It was inch by inch, breath by breath, never backing down even when the odds were stacked against you. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time he wasn't running. He was choosing his path. And that was everything. The city moved on as it always did. Headlines shifted to the next scandal, the next tragedy, the next fleeting moment of public outrage. But for Malik, the fight never really ended. The scars of the battle weren't just physical, they lingered. In the wary glances from strangers, the quiet hostility from those who still believed Drake's narrative, the restless nights where sleep came in fragments. Victor's foundation launched quietly, without fanfare. It wasn't the kind of charity that slapped names on buildings or handed out symbolic checks for photo ops. It was practical, legal clinics in neighborhoods where cops stopped kids for breathing wrong. Job training centers that didn't ask why you dropped out of school. Safe spaces where no one called you boy like it was an insult. Malik kept his distance at first, unsure where he fit into this new world. He wasn't used to being on the side that built things. Survival had always been his only goal. But Victor had been patient, giving him small roles, organizing workshops, mentoring younger kids who saw their own struggle reflected in Malik's sharp eyes and guarded posture. And slowly, Malik found his footing. It was a crisp autumn morning when the final blow landed. Malik was sitting in the foundation's tiny back office, sorting through supply requests, when Jamal burst through the door, grinning like he'd just hit the lottery. "Kid, turn on the news now." Malik frowned but grabbed his phone, fingers moving quickly to open the live stream from a local station. The banner at the bottom of the screen hit him like a freight train. Mason Drake indicted on federal charges: conspiracy, fraud, and obstruction of justice. The footage cut to Drake himself, hands cuffed behind his back, being led out of his glass-walled office by federal agents. His face, always so smug and untouchable, was pale and tight with fury. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. He didn't answer. Malik blinked, hardly daring to believe it. "How?" he rasped, voice catching in his throat. Jamal tossed a thick folder onto the desk. Victor didn't just freeze Drake out of his business. He hired private investigators, dug into every dirty deal Drake ever touched. Turns out, poisoning a billionaire was just the tip of the iceberg. Tax fraud, bribery, shell companies laundering campaign donations. Once they cracked one shell, the whole damn house of cards came down. Malik stared at the screen, heart pounding. Drake wasn't just facing civil suits anymore. This was federal, serious. The kind of charges money couldn't buy your way out of. "And Isabella?" Malik asked quietly, almost afraid of the answer. Jamal's grin widened. "Already in custody. Her plea deal fell apart the second Drake turned on her to save his own skin." "They're both going down." Malik sank into the chair, head spinning. He'd fought so hard, lost so much, and now, finally, the giants had fallen. Not just in the court of public opinion, but in the cold, hard reality of handcuffs and prison. "Cells," Victor called that evening. His voice was steadier than it had been in months, the weight of paranoia and betrayal finally lifting. "It's over, kid," Victor said, almost disbelieving. "Really over?" Malik didn't answer right away. He stepped out onto the foundation's small balcony, looking down at the city streets. People bustled along the sidewalks, heads down, lives moving forward without knowing how close power and corruption had come to winning again. "Yeah," Malik said quietly. "It's over." But deep down, he knew it never really ended. There would always be another Drake, another Isabella, another system ready to crush anyone who didn't fit neatly into its mold. The difference now? Malik wasn't fighting alone. He had allies, resources, and most importantly, he had a voice the world couldn't ignore anymore. 2 weeks later, Malik stood on a stage at the Foundation's first official youth summit. The crowd wasn't huge, just local kids, tired parents, a few teachers who still believed in their students despite everything, but it was real, honest. Victor sat quietly in the front row, flanked by Dr. Carter and Jamal. No cameras, no reporters. Just people trying to make the city a little less cruel, one step at a time. Malik stepped up to the microphone, heart thudding in his chest. Public speaking had never been his thing, but this was different. This was personal. "I'm not here because I was smarter or braver or luckier than anyone else," Malik began, voice steady despite the nerves. "I'm here because I didn't give up, even when the world told me I should. Even when they called me a liar, a criminal, less than." He paused, letting the weight of those words settle over the crowd. "But the truth," Malik continued, gaze sweeping the room, "the truth doesn't die just because powerful people try to bury it. It lives in the people who refuse to stay silent. People like all of you." Applause broke out, hesitant at first, then growing stronger, more certain. Malik didn't smile. This wasn't about celebration. It was about survival, about resilience, about justice that didn't come wrapped in ribbons, but carved out through sweat, pain, and sheer stubbornness. When the applause died down, Malik stepped back from the microphone, heart still racing. He didn't need recognition. He didn't need praise. He just needed to know that the next time someone shouted for help, the world would listen a little sooner, fight a little harder, and for the first time, he believed it might, because he'd made sure of it. The story of Malik Johnson isn't just about survival. It's about resilience, integrity, and the courage to speak out, even when the odds are stacked against you. Malik didn't have wealth, connections, or status. He had something far more powerful: conviction. He saw injustice and refused to look away even when the world told him his voice didn't matter. This story highlights an uncomfortable truth. The system is often designed to protect the powerful and silence the vulnerable. Malik's journey shows how deeply ingrained racism and classism can turn victims into villains and perpetrators into martyrs. If Malik had given up after being dismissed by the restaurant staff, ignored by the police, or slandered by the media, Victor Reynolds would be dead, and the real conspirators would have walked away richer and more dangerous than ever. But Malik didn't give up. He fought, not just for himself, but for the truth. His persistence forced the world to confront its biases, and his courage inspired others to stand beside him. In the end, it wasn't just one boy against the system. It was a community of truth seekers, whistleblowers, and everyday people who refused to let injustice win. The lesson is clear. Your voice matters no matter how small the world tries to make you feel. Silence only empowers the oppressors. Speaking up, even when it's terrifying, can spark change that ripples far beyond what you can see. Now we want to hear from you. What would you have done if you were in Malik's shoes? Would you have spoken up, knowing the risks? Comment number 1 if you believe Malik was right to fight, even when the world turned against him. If this story inspired you, please like, subscribe, and share to spread the message. Together, we can build a world where the truth always finds its way to the surface. Thank you for watching, and remember, the fight for justice starts with one voice, yours. Stay safe, stay strong, and never stop standing up for what's right. See you in the next story.